Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to plunge into some fascinating topics and hopefully surface with some really intriguing insights for you. Have you ever stopped to think, really think, about how communication itself, how we tell stories, has basically shaped who we are? It's maybe more profound than we usually imagine. Today, we're doing a deep dive into this huge transformation of human communication. We're looking at three major phases. We'll explore what we gained, sure, but also maybe what we lost, perhaps surprisingly lost, moving from oral traditions to written words, and now to this visual age we're in.
Yeah, and guiding us through this is a really insightful article called From Oral Echoes to Visual Spectacles.
Hmm.
It offers, I think, a really compelling view on the power of storytelling, but also, like you said, the potential loss when oral storytelling faded. That phrase, potential loss, really jumped out at me.
It did for me too. It's a powerful way to frame it, isn't it? So our mission here is to pull out the core ideas, those great examples, and maybe the surprising takeaways from this piece. We want to help you, listening in, really grasp these huge shifts in how we tell, share, and, well, feel stories. It still affects us now. Okay, let's plunge in. First up, oral tradition. Right, so picture a time where every story was genuinely a living story. The article describes them as being like clay, constantly reshaped, adapted by the storyteller every single time. So no two tellings were identical. It was personal, unique, and very communal, a collaborative thing between speaker and listener.
And what's really fascinating there is this idea of the aura of the story in oral tradition. It wasn't just
Yeah.
the words. Each story had its own kind of essence,
That's
a soul almost. And this aura, it was shaped by everything, the storyteller's style, sure, but also the audience's reactions right then and there. Even the place, the lighting, the mood, it all fed into it.
Well,
It suggests stories weren't just data transfer, they were events,
yeah.
a whole sensory experience, something our screens maybe struggle to replicate today.
That aura idea is,
Yeah.
yeah, captivating. When you say shaped by everything, it makes me wonder, are there any modern echoes of that? Even faint ones? Live theater, maybe?
Maybe live theater, yeah, or perhaps a really good live music performance,
Uh-huh.
that shared energy. But for stories, for narrative, it's pretty rare now to get that kind of collective immersion in daily life, I think.
Makes sense. And you really feel that difference with the example in the article about Norse Viking storytelling. These weren't bedtime stories read quietly. They happened in huge, firelit halls. Imagine that. The darkness would make you focus on sound, right? Every word echoing. It would literally bind the audience together, a shared physical experience. The article draws a line from that all the way back to Ice Age caves, origin stories told in dark, echoing spaces, creating this incredible bond. It almost makes you, I don't know, nostalgic for a time when stories were felt that way. Communally. Sometimes I can't even get my family off their phones at dinner.
It really highlights how different the whole experience was. And the article sums up the power of oral storytelling like this. It combines the immersion of a film with the intimacy of deep conversation.
Hmm.
That creates something really emotionally memorable, something you just can't fully capture in print or even on screen.
Hmm.
It's unique.
But then things changed. This incredibly vibrant, fluid world eventually gave way to something revolutionary, literary culture.
Sure.
This was a massive shift. We moved towards individual, often isolated reading and writing, very different from the communal fire pit.
Totally different.
Now, obviously, a huge advantage. Words could suddenly travel across time and space. Homer, preserved for millennia, that's huge.
Undeniably.
But what was the trade-off? And this is where, like the article suggests, it gets really interesting, maybe even a little sobering.
It really is. The article points to a definite loss of playfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. In an oral setting, there's freedom, improvisation, but writing. Suddenly, the storyteller is more cautious. They know it's permanent, it's a record, it can be judged, analyzed, picked apart forever.
Right?
And that permanence, well, it limits experimentation. It maybe reduces that direct intimacy with an immediate audience. It discourages just trying things out, taking risks.
Yeah, you trade freedom for permanence.
Pretty much, yeah.
The article uses this brilliant Adam and Eve metaphor, gaining awareness, maybe even shame or self-consciousness about your words, but losing that freer, more creative innocence of just telling. It's provocative, isn't it?
Extremely.
Does it mean we as a species traded some creative freedom for intellectual precision? Is that the implication?
The article certainly leans that way. It's like permanence introduced a kind of self-awareness that fundamentally altered creative expression. We got better at structured, complex thought, maybe, but perhaps lost some of that uninhibited joy in the moment of creation.
And then from literary culture, we land in visual culture, Our world, largely, images, videos, they give you almost complete sensory info up front, right? Less imagination needed compared to listening or even reading. You just see it. It's instant.
Right, immediate. And that has its pros, definitely. Universality is one. I mean, almost any creature could understand a picture, unlike specific languages. And efficiency, think of a map versus describing directions verbally.
Oh, absolutely. A map wins every time.
But the limits are there too. Visuals are often self-contained, harder to change collaboratively once made, unlike those living oral tales. The story is presented to you, not really with you.
Okay, to really hammer home these differences, the article uses this fantastic example. The strawberry story. So the oral version is described as this whimsical, sprawling tale. A boy named Mama wants endless strawberries. And it's full of funny, escalating problems, told with real emotion by the storyteller, tweaked for that specific listener, full of playful details that might change next time.
Constantly evolving.
Exactly.
Now contrast that with the written version. The article says it becomes, well, shorter, condensed, less adventurous, all that nuance of performance, gone, stripped away to fit onto the page in a readable, static way.
So it's preserved, but
But it loses the spontaneity, the intimacy, the very life of the oral telling, maybe? It's not just a format change. It feels like the soul of the story shifts.
so, okay. What does this journey mean for us? If oral tradition had all these amazing qualities, why did we move away from it? The article points to a few big reasons. First, a shift from paganism, which often valued adventure, memorability, and stories, towards Christianity, which leaned more into moralizing good versus evil narratives.
Right, and that changes the purpose of storytelling itself. Not just entertainment or cultural memory, but moral instruction. That naturally shapes the kinds of stories told and how they're told.
Makes sense. Second, big societal shifts. Moving from more communal, agrarian life to hierarchical societies. And in those new setups, storytelling sometimes became controlled by elites, used to shape public opinion, maybe reinforce power structures.
Yeah, that's a critical point. Power dynamics influencing cultural forms, turning a shared act into something potentially managed or directed.
And the third reason mentioned, education starts focusing heavily on reading and writing. Live storytelling gets pushed aside.
As literacy becomes the gold standard for being educated, those traditional oral skills performance, elaborate memory, they get devalued. So they naturally decline.
The article doesn't just describe this, it also poses some deep reflection questions. The first one really got me thinking, what is imagination, really? In the oral world, the article suggests imagination wasn't just making things up out of thin air. It was more like an extension of memory. Well, the act of remembering and retelling these powerful, memorable stories was itself the spark for creativity, reshaping, re-experiencing what came before.
So imagination as adapting memory, not just pure invention.
Yeah.
That challenges how we often think of creativity today, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As some kind of lightning bolt of pure novelty.
Exactly, and reframes it. Maybe our ability to create is deeply tied to remembering, adapting, building on what's already there. Less lone genius, more collaborative evolution.
Interesting.
Which flows into the next question. Could giants like Homer, Dante, Shakespeare even exist without that oral tradition?
And the article argues, probably not.
Right. It suggests they were building directly on these incredibly rich oral foundations. Their genius was channeling that oral energy into the new written form.
So the written word kind of owes its brilliance to the echoes of the spoken one. They stood on the shoulders of countless storytellers before them.
Makes you wonder, if Homer were around today, would he be like adapting the Odyssey for TikTok?
Chuckles. That's a slightly terrifying image. But yeah, maybe. The medium shapes the message.
And the final big question, does civilization itself make us less creative? It's provocative, but the idea floated is that modern society with more wealth, more tech, more comfort, maybe brings increased caution, a reduced willingness to explore, to play, to take the risks inherent in that spontaneous oral style.
A trade-off again. Comfort and security versus wild, uninhibited creativity.
Seems to be the suggestion.
We've gained so much in recording, transmitting information precisely, but maybe lost a bit of that primal creative spark that lives in the immediate, unpolished, fleeting moment of spoken exchange.
So we've taken this journey, haven't we? From those living oral narratives through the permanence of print into today's visual flood. And the key idea we've unpacked is that while literacy and visual media are incredibly valuable, no question they might have also distanced us from some things, from that specific kind of vivid creativity, adaptability, and maybe even the community glue that oral storytelling provided.
Yeah, and it's really important to stress this isn't about saying one is better. That's not the point. It's more about understanding the huge implications of these shifts. for our imagination, for our
Hmm.
culture, thinking about the trade-offs, like we said, the ones we made it consciously or maybe just stumbled into.
Absolutely. So, maybe a final thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. Think about how you consume stories now. Screens, short clips, curated feeds. How might that be shaping your own capacity for deep imagination, for connection, for stories that feel truly alive? Maybe just observe your own experience. Perhaps even look for ways to reconnect with some of those elements, the immediacy, the shared experience, the adaptability that might have faded a bit in our visual world. What if the next story you engage with wasn't just watched or read, but somehow lived in the moment of its telling? Something to think about.